Arnie for another Sunday video. I am back and rolling. Maybe you'll see that I've reopened my old videos from Costa Rica. I actually took some time just last night. Just for full transparency, I filmed these on Sunday and then I post them the next Sunday, so I have a little bit of time for editing, and then I'll post and film on the same day. Just it works for my schedule. So what I'm talking about is not in real time, it's like a week lag. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this for holidays and this kind of stuff, but it just works better for running a business and my life schedule and all these things. So last night, after I posted the newest video, the one from last week, I thought I would take some time to listen to my old videos and see why I had so much hesitancy about keeping them up, and why I had so much fear. And, you know, after listening to them, I actually, this kind of was like, I think I might be overthinking this a little. But there was something inside of me, you know, like some part of me that is just so cautious about sharing my voice, or so resistant, or so afraid. And I want to talk about today like where that comes from, and kind of track through the different layers of who we are as human beings, using my example, and to talk about some of the darker things on the planet that hold us back. So in my spiritual journey, when I first woke up, I spent many years in Vancouver, and now that I've traveled around to different places and lived in different places, and now that I'm back in my hometown, 5 minutes from the school that I went to in elementary school when I was in kindergarten all the way to grade 6, and a 5-minute drive. So a 5-minute walk and a 5-minute drive to my high school. So I'm gonna pause for a second and let you know it's the beginning of November, and we have big flaky snowflakes in the window. The window's right there. And it's kind of magical. It's kind of interesting. Some years we don't even have snow for Christmas anymore. So to have a big snowfall 2 months before Christmas is kind of interesting. I'm enjoying it, I have to say. So, you know, every time we go somewhere new on the planet, I don't know if any of you out there are travelers or really like to tap into learning through experience. But every time we live somewhere new, there's a resonance in the earth with the ley lines and the way the chakra system on the earth is built, and the way the energy constellates with the communities that are there. Also considering the control matrix and what is possible in different places in the earth. You know, every place for me personally has brought about different aspects of who I am, or given themes, or general themes. So when I lived in Vancouver, I was studying energy healing, and it was really, for me, what I experienced was like, if you're going into the multidimensional world, it was above where I was energetically, vibrationally, with the people I was with, was above the 4th dimension. So it's as if I had such a drastic spiritual awakening that connected to me, to my soul self, which happens to be quite angelic and quite in a harmonious state, and full of love and compassion for life. So when you live there, that's great, but if you're not embodied into the physical world and not able to yet face the realities of this dimension, there's still work to do. So, you know, I go back to that because I think about how open I was there, how heart-centered I was, how full of potential I was, and maybe as well because I hadn't balanced into the dark side of life yet, or become aware of it, or acknowledged my nature as having experiences, as, you know, playing roles on the dark side as well. You know, I'm always going everywhere, but I hope some of you are following along and getting tidbits of information from this. So, you know, we're all waking up. We're all going through these openings in our energy field. It has to do with contracting as a lineage healer, having a tendency to be in your heart, being an old enough soul to step into the awakening of this moment on the planet, unhinging from trauma bonds and karmic patterning that might have been held inside of your subconscious because of the control matrix that's now shifting and transforming. And when I say the control matrix, I call it that, but that's like the government systems, like what's behind the government, the school, the hospitals, the financial system, the food system, government, school, hospitals, financial system, food system. Apparently there's 6. I always like miss one. What's the last? Oh, the church. So the spiritual system. So, you know, when I first had my awakening, I assumed, because of how much information was coming in and how much it made sense and how much it was full of compassion and love for humanity and our potential, and like how, you know, it unlocked the keys of self-love to see how beautiful each and every one of us are, and for me to be able to fall back in love with myself. I assumed that there was just a grassroots evolution that needed to transcend or ascend into, or move up the ladder in our guiding system, like that humanity needed these awakening codes inside of those higher levels of our world to make peace and equality and the elimination of suffering to be possible. And then during COVID, I realized that, in fact, there is a lot of wisdom in those higher levels and a lot of knowledge. It just happens to be that we have a light and dark side of this world, and that there are different deities, you know, running our systems. So from my interpretation, and I have studied a lot through this, and I also want to preface that, you know, we're all trying our best to understand and learn and grow through our own experiences. And for me, there's been moments where like things lock in to be very, very true. And I just got a text message from one of my family members, and they're not even in this province. And I was like, do you want to do something today? And one of them said, I would, but they're like in a different country. It's cute. So, anyway. So when I've gone into this occult study where people are unveiling the control matrix, it tends to be that most of those people will be leaning towards the more religious side and cut out any multidimensional healing practices or spiritual development, and not even kind of showcase any of the light version of that. So it's been my understanding, though, that especially in my initial awakening moments, that there's a lot of material for the evolving spirit. One of my main teachers is Sri Aurobindo. A lot of material for the evolving spirit to work through qualities of the heart and to come into a greater alignment with their light quotient or their soul self, and to awaken more self-reflective qualities within that create a more peaceful humanity. So I don't always agree with a lot of the material that's out there that just deletes the light side of spiritual development, because there is a big container for that as well. And a lot of the mystics, and there's like the mystics and the shamans that I have met over the years, give me hope for that. And, you know, like the Rainbow Warriors. And I was listening to something today, and I think one of the main keys is to come back to ourselves and to just live a moral life as best we can, and to have compassion for the things that we meet means like true understanding and wisdom for why they exist. So accepting something energetically is not the same as taking action on something into the world. And it's only when we're able to accept fully all that is around us that we can make the most light choice for the moment, or the most loving, the most conscious, the most balanced choice. So anyway, I'm getting back to this voice stuff. So so when I lived in Vancouver, I was above that kind of dualistic control matrix spiritual world, which I would consider the astral world, where there's higher angelic frequencies, and then there's like lower demonic frequencies. There's elementals and all the non-physical energies that are past, like our loved ones who've passed over, our ancestors. It's also the realm of where we can create with our minds, and that's something else maybe I'll touch on today, is learning when we go into the spiritual world what's really coming through as information from a higher space of our soul essence. And that usually comes in as like a really soft whisper. It feels like it doesn't have any power over us. It's just a little bit of knowledge or wisdom that if we choose it, we have to take that empowered path of walking and taking action as a human being to walk in that direction. It's like the soft whisper in the wind, you know, like grandmother, like a grandmother. That's what I feel it as. Or a gentle, masculine pillars of light, this kind of stuff. It's like there's no part of that information that's trying to control you or manipulate you. It's like nuggets of love. Nuggets of love. And sometimes when we're in pain, it might come in as an embrace or a sense of being held. I tend to gravitate towards the energies of Jesus, Mary, and sometimes Mary Magdalene. That's my lineage. I have Irish background, and I grew up Catholic. So even as a child, I remember just really loving that story and the deeper, not so much like the whole charade and opulent, when everything's like very fancy and beautiful and overly materialized, nature of how things function there, but the story and the frequency. At Christmas, I often just cry when I hear the story of Jesus being born. So I have this like love for whatever that activation, whatever that consciousness, whoever that consciousness was that came to our planet and gifted us such an evolution in who we are as humans. So yeah, so sometimes when we're in pain and suffering, we can call on those beings to bring through an embrace of love and this kind of stuff. Whereas lower vibrational entities and demonic spirits thrive on fear and manipulation and control. So it's a little bit like we can go back to the architecture of the human vessel to come through and say, okay, is it a power experience, or is it a heart-centered experience? A heart-centered experience will never feel controlling or evoke fear. Although, of course, there's nuances to healing when we're going through something and stepping into something new with our own power and our own volition. There might be fear there. That's our nervous system, and that's the test of walking through personal growth. So back to personal growth and my voice. I watched some of my videos, and I'm also moved out of my family home. When I come home back to Canada, I have lived with my parents a couple times. It's usually only for a month. This time it was for 3 months. Now I live in an apartment. In an apartment, you can see behind me there's a stone wall. It's like one of the old heritage buildings in our town. And it took a while to clear, but I realized, going back to that idea of wherever you're living, the consciousness of the collective energy there, the energy field is gonna, especially if you're sensitive, will, and if you are tending to be an empathic person and reading your surroundings for data to how to kind of fit into the environment, which is something I tend to do. Don't really like to ruffle feathers. Although I just was gifted like an affirmation card, and it was a random spontaneous thing where I walked into a store and there was gift bags because it was celebrating a women's night, and there was an affirmation card inside, and mine was interesting. It was about disrupting the status quo. How much have you disrupted the status quo lately, and are you living on purpose? And I didn't quite understand what it meant, but now that I'm making this video, I'm like, oh my God, it totally makes sense. You know, I tend to fall into, wanting to kind of balance the environment, which is a natural tendency I have, but it's sometimes can get, my individuality can get trampled on, and that never leads anywhere good, right? We want to balance our authentic nature with the world. It's a balance. And so as soon as I moved out of that space, my fear of sharing my truth is kind of like going away. And that's where I wanted to touch on that same theme of my original videos from Costa Rica. And boy, do I miss it there. I will go back one day. Although now I'm going to be here for some years, back in Canada. The tendency of the narcissist is to live in control, and they have specific identities that they want perpetuated into the world. And if you are disrupting that with your voice, that can be a place of fear for empaths. So I'm walking through that space. I listen to my old YouTube videos. I don't hear myself speaking anything negative about anyone. It's literally my own stories, the energetic stuff behind it. And as I said in other videos, it's probably like a total other language for most of the people that are related. A total other language for most of the people that are involved in the storyline, which is just about healing in the end. So another reason why I decided to continue on with just sharing who I am and what feels natural to me is humanity does not evolve by shoving things under the rug, by wearing masks and putting on a show for who exactly, right? When we're asleep to ourselves, we think the outer world is all that there is. So there's a certain culture we live in, there's a certain way we're meant to be, and probably for 95% of people, who knows? I'm just giving a ballpark number. I always do that, but I'm like, and then I think like, who really knows? Though I have been a nanny in enough homes to see that that's probably true. Like how we are taught to act in the external world is not the truth of how we act when we're behind closed doors, And the evolution of ourselves spiritually means to be authentic through all roles in our lives, the ones in the public and the ones in the private. So, I'm not talking about like drastic things about like walking around naked in public or stuff like that. I'm talking about, I just watched a video of a guy and he was dancing on the street and the police came up to him and they took because he was so out there with his energy, it took them a minute to, I think, realize that he was perfectly sober, perfectly conscious, perfectly intentional, and very eloquent with his words, and that he was just free, just enjoying being sensitive and enjoying dancing and enjoying processing emotions that way. So it's stuff like that. Like if we have something that we don't agree with someone else, it's not about talking shit about them behind closed doors. It's about addressing it and feeling strong enough to speak your truth. And I think something with narcissistic people is that they aren't actually angry at what's going on with someone else. They aren't able to process their emotions enough to speak what they really feel. So they have to project those feelings onto other people, onto other storylines, onto other experiences, because internally, in the end, what it is they feel insecure. There's a true insecurity underneath their life that needs to be unlocked, because their spirit is so shut down for whatever reason, for whatever trauma, for whatever way their body matrix is constellated, which has to do with the closing down of the heart. They have to project things outwards. And I think that's the main nugget for me, that it's not healthy to be allowed to never go deeper, to never be invited to go deeper, and it doesn't help humanity grow. So if you are, as I am, shutting down your voice because you're fearful of what other people will think of you, there reaches a point where you just have to go for it. You just have to go for yourself, put yourself first, choose yourself first. And, there's compromises that we make. For me, it's if I shut my voice down and become part of my collective family unit, which means I'm not married, I'm single, so it's just my biological family. I have safety. I have material safety and support. And so that's the compromise. But so I bring that up because I'm sure for each one of you out there who's contemplating sharing their voice, or even just taking the time firstly to discover their voice. Something interesting about me is I've always wondered this. I have 2 lines here, and when you get into kind of like body soul systems, I think it's in the Chinese traditions, they acknowledge that moles and freckles and big birthmarks on the body can indicate past life traumas or unresolved experiences or big moments in time, and things like lines on the body like that, so for whatever whatever past lives I've had about not sharing my voice, or vows and oaths that I've taken to different systems, when it gets back into the kind of left-hand dark control matrix stuff, of which I've had memories of different lifetimes in there, to break through and speak the spiritual truths that are embodied within me from many lifetimes of spiritual growth. It's been a journey to not keep imploding back on myself when I feel like I want to share something and then it kind of comes backwards. So I've been working with that, and there's the representation physically is those lines of having something tied around your neck. When I lived in Vancouver many years ago, I remember so vividly a moment of writing in my diary or writing something out, and then looking in the window, which was kind of like a mirror at the time, and seeing me doing this. And I acknowledged, wow, that looks like don't talk, don't speak, shut up kind of thing. Even though I was just thinking in the moment, I was literally just pondering, right? But it just happened that my hand went like that. So long story short, I've been able to move into a space where I'm grounding back into myself. It's the first big snowfall of the season. There's snow on the ground now. It's the beginning of November. I'm coming back with videos to you all. I left up my Costa Rican moment when I was processing a heartbreak, and moving through the energy and actually resolving that energy, letting go of that pattern. I really felt it in those videos, and so I hope that they help some of you out there who tend to be that wounded empathic identity or way that our energy fields have grown. So until next time, welcome back to An Energy Healer's Guide to Spiritual Awakening, and I'll see you in the next video.